I'm gonna back the truck up. Okay, I gotta go back and let all the people listening. Um, I actually taught her and her twin sister back in the day. Okay, when she was 16 years old, number one player in the South. She was a great tennis player. Made the right decision. Went to Harvard, one of the best doctors in the world. So I think she made the right decision. But you know, her kids came to the academy a little bit. We always kind of stayed in touch. And one day she asked me about doing a book about mental strength. And this is right up my wheelhouse. I'm probably more a life coach as much as a tennis coach. You know, people know me with Venus, Serena, Capriati, Roddick, Sharapova, Moschina, Pierce, Kennan, all these people that won Grand Slams or have been number one. But I deal more with not more, as much with the mental part, okay, and how to flip the script, take a negative, turn it a positive, because in the game of tennis, you got 20 seconds to flip it in your mind, like it happened 20 years ago. And you got to remember to forget. So when Niv approached me about this, and the medical point of view, okay, the science point of view, and then me being in the trenches and doing this my whole life, it was a match made in heaven. And now that we've done the book, not only has it become a bestseller, people come back and say, it changed my life. Okay, and I don't change strokes, I change lives on the tennis court. So to me, I don't want to say it kind of validated everything I've done through my whole career, but it's been so fulfilling simply because the wild card is this right here. Tennis in the game of life, it's a game of inches from one ear to another, and it's about perspective and how you look at it. So when we teamed up to do the book, it was really a powerhouse combination, a dynamic duo, because she's dealing it from the doctor point of view, and I'm dealing it from, made a lot of champions besides changed a lot of people's lives. So there's so many gold nuggets in the book. It's one of the best things I've ever done in my life.
That's such a great way to put it. There's one word you said in there that I live by. This is the word that is I feel like we have, we make New Year's resolutions, or we have a word of the year that we're going to practice, right? My life word, I have one word in life that I live by, and that word is perspective.
I knew you were going to say that.
Perspective-
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that. You know what? And when you do that, you look at the world through a different lens. But go ahead.
You do. Yeah. So perspective to me is if you walk circumspect, right? Broadly, look around, you see things differently. If you are looking very narrow, you're missing out on a lot of the pieces that are going to help you pave this road forward. And so I'm a big believer in no matter where our journey takes us, if we walk circumspect with perspective, we have a greater understanding of ourselves, of our environment, of our purpose, and of our future, of where we want to go. It's easier to plan goals, it's easier to work through the challenges of life with perspective. And I also think it helps with connection. And as humans, we need connection to feel validated, like you said. We need connection to be able to feel seen, heard, feel like we're part of something. And if you walk introspective, you don't have the perspective of others in your circle, you're missing out on that fullness of community. And that's why perspective to me, when you said that, is a big key to my life. That is my life word, because I want to walk with perspective.
Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to, I just wanted to add to the story. Is it freezing? Are you there?
Can you hear us? Can you hear us?
Oh, there you go.
Okay, I can hear you.
Okay.
I froze for a little while. No, I was going to add to what Rick said, and I was really just so, I think it was a dream come true that he said yes. because I had come to appreciate him for an award for like women in leadership, and I'd come down. I never even expected he would say yes for the award. He took a picture, and then just underneath my breath, I was like, I've got an idea for a book. He has motivational sayings all over his academy. And I was always motivated and encouraged by them. Every time I would come there, it changed the way of thinking, like you said, the perspective. And it was like, just this sort of think big and be big, and it just made me feel so encouraged. Like I gotta be better than what I am. And so I was like, okay, I have an idea about a book on that. Just whispered it, and I was impressed. I couldn't even imagine that after I told him about the book idea, that 2 weeks later, it was like yesterday, it was like in the middle of this busy clinic with patients. I was seeing like 15 patients, and I was like so exhausted. I was going home, and I get a text message, "Where's the book?" I was like, whoa.
Let's go. Let's go.
Let's go. I was like, oh my God. I was like, from Rick. I was like, wow, this is a dream come true. No one has ever really committed to something like working as hard. Book ideas, they take a lot of time and there's a lot of work. And I just ran home that day and started writing. But I remember that positivity. And Rick and I it just was like, it was like, everything went exponential. It was like on fire. We were just great. I mean, just together. It was just, he was positive. I loved his positivity. It fed into my positivity, and that's how the book came about.
Yeah,
So really great.
Yeah, but going to the perspective,
yeah.
this has to be right in my wheelhouse and the leader in the clubhouse, because I always tell people what you may see is different than Rick may see. Okay,
Right.
so it's a whole different way of looking at it. It almost is what it isn't. You got to be able to flip it, how you respond to things. And it's not even about tennis, what I do, it's everything. And once you get on that hamster wheel and you train your brain to react certain ways, the way you handle things, I mean, it's better for your health. It's better for the ripple effect, or the cascading effect is even more powerful than the actual moment. But people let things control them instead of you controlling the situation. And once you buy into the way this really works, you just grow and grow and grow, brick by brick. And you can relate, because when you said perspective, okay, this podcast is now the leader of the clubhouse because we're on the same wavelength. And it all starts with mindset and a habit. And once you get onto that, you just start handling things, and you grow and grow and grow. And more importantly, for what I do, I just influence and change so many people's lives, the way they look at things and how they respond to things. Sometimes they would listen to me more than their parents, the way they do this. So yeah, perspective's what it's all about.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm going to take a quick pause here. We keep having some freezing issues. You guys keep freezing on me. I'm missing out. Let me make sure. I think it's the internet connection, but I'm not sure on which end. We'll keep going and see if it'll work itself out. Give me.
If not, we can switch computers if you want to have my computer. Is it the computer?
Well, I think if it's internet, it'd be.
Yeah, we both, right? Yeah, I had it this morning, but it wasn't too.
Yeah.
We're good.
We're okay. I mean, the other option is the phone.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see if we can keep going. I might have to ask you to repeat if it freezes.
That's fine.
And I'll message you.
We're good. Yeah, we got your message.
I'm not sure why it's.
Yeah, it's maybe.
Perfect. Okay, sounds good. Perfect. We will pick up. I want to break down just a little bit of what you were talking about, just the mindset and the way that we kind of control that. And I want to break down just a couple of the things that you said, and we'll kind of expand this a little bit. And you have talked about this in the book, but specifically, how can mental resilience techniques that you talk about in the book help individuals dealing with chronic illness? Because, I mean, I think this is a really hard thing for those that are walking through life challenges that are really almost out of their control. But there's got to be some techniques, and you've written about these, that can help kind of navigate that.
Absolutely. I love that question because I do that every day in the clinic. And I can give you two examples
Yeah.
for one thing. And my patients are all struggling with chronic pain and chronic illness. And the most important technique, I think, we were talking about perspective and reframing. But one of the main things is gratitude. Because as soon as we fill up our hearts with gratitude, we end up becoming, we see things so differently. And I can give an example. I'll never forget, I was a medical student at Mayo Clinic, and all the kids were complaining that they had to work so hard, that they don't get any sleep, they have to study, and they don't have a life. And I'll never forget, our dean told us, she said, go, she said, today's exercise, all you guys are complaining. She was at the auditorium in the front. She's like, all of you are complaining. I want you all to go to the lobby of the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, and just sit there for 20 minutes and watch. Okay, now we all sat there. I remember watching. There's like beautiful chandeliers, beautiful floors, and there you see the sickest kids that have maybe 3 or 4 months left to live. You see a kid having a seizure. You're seeing another person with a leg cut off, another one with their arm cut off, and then you see someone like, with dementia and their family members pushing them, and someone with a brain tumor, and all of a sudden, there's no more complaining because you're like appreciative
Yeah.
of what you have. So it doesn't mean that you minimize what you're having. I mean, everybody has struggles and pains, but it's a combination of gratitude and perspective, and recognizing that if we're grateful for what we have, then all of a sudden everything else is not as it's a technique to get out of the pain, maybe, and to improve it, and to feel the situation in a different way. And that's what you're talking about, perspective. It really means a lot. The second aspect, I remember there's another story I had, was when I was in the clinic last week when a patient came in and her daughter got shot by mistake at 35, incidental homicide. She loved her daughter, but she had read our book and she was in such good spirits. And the reason why, because she was, again, so grateful for the memories she had. She said, at least my daughter is 35 years old, and I got to live with her for 35 years. And I got to have beautiful memories with her. And she didn't think about the homicide. She thought more of the positive memories and all the trips she went with her daughter. And she just really was full of gratitude and appreciation and joy. She said, I'm just so full of positivity today. And thank you so much. This book changed my life. So it's those moments that really make a big difference. She was able to reprogram her mind and make it positive and think, with gratitude, and kind of reframe the situation so it worked for her benefit. That's why, like, our mind is like our best friend.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Can you explain, you were talking about just going through that and changing that mindset and working with your patients on this, but can you explain the connection between the neurological and mental strength in managing things like chronic fatigue or the unexplained that we have no control over?
Yeah.
The correlation between those 2?
Are you talking about the mental strength to manage those chronic situations? There's a lot of that's a big topic. But if you think about in a big picture point of view, right? When someone's tired, there's obviously maybe a biological component to it. Some people might have blood, anemia or whatever. They might have problems sleeping at night. But if there's an additional mental piece to that, that mental piece can make the fatigue worse. And so that's why we kind of, what Rick said is we're going to feed our mind with positivity, kind of like it's its own medicine. And then when we do that, then we'll have, if we think of the neurological system, it's sensory input and motor output, right? So whenever we have sensory input, we have like good thoughts, we hear good things, we see good things that are positive, our motor output will be positive. And that's what my kid, she's like, what does positive thinking do? I said, look, positive thinking creates positive action. So I know that if people are struggling with fatigue, there is definitely that, or their chronic pain. But if they have those positive thoughts feeding in, that's like a medicine, that's going to give them some positive action. Even if it's not like they're running up, a marathon or whatever, but even if it's a small thing, it's that sensory input gives that motor output.
Yeah.
Let me chime in here because I'm backing the truck up once again. We go back to perspective. Number one, everybody listening, you got to reframe it. Number one, you should always appreciate what you have instead of what you don't have. That's the starting point. thank God it's every day. Don't thank God it's Friday. You know what I mean? Everybody has it wrong. Because then what happens when that's a starting point, like Nib said, she's at the Mayo Clinic and you're seeing people, because let's face it, tragedy and death makes people take a deep breath and they change everything and they appreciate a little bit more. Then a couple weeks go by and they're back to the same old negativity and they let things control them, and you got to get into this routine about what I just said, because when you're in a routine, mentally you become a machine. You're training yourself how you're going to look at it. Unfortunately, some people have to understand. Well, some people love to complain and they like problems and they like gossip and they like that, and they might not ever want to change. So that's a whole different thing. But everybody has a choice. Okay, and positivity is a leader in the clubhouse, how it affects your nervous system. Well, listen, when people lose a point in tennis, I have the kids smile. Okay? Because that's not what you want to do. You're going to be frustrated. And this is the same thing. We can look at the same thing, all three of us, we might see something very different, but we're looking at the same thing. It's how we're going to respond to it mentally. No one's bulletproof. I'm not saying whatever. You can't be like that. But you need to take a deep breath. People always tell you count to 10, count to 100, whatever it might be. But you got to train yourself to do this. It's like Niv said, everybody's aware, kind of, what they put in their mouth. But they're not aware what they put into their brain. And you got to listen to motivational speakers. You got to motivate yourself. Your best friend is the mirror. You should be talking to yourself every day. I don't know if you want to have people around when you're talking to yourself, but this is very important. But people all have it backwards. They let what they say on TV affect them. Everything affects us. You control the situation. Don't let it control you. It's perspective. But the starting point is appreciation. Like Niv said, gratitude. Appreciate what you have. Because if everybody would say, well, if I could do that over again, or if I could go back in time, or what the heck was I thinking back then, or what, everybody does it because we're human. No one's, and you got to look at problems as an opportunity. When you're going to have problems, okay, don't be just happy on your birthday or Christmas or whatever. No, you can't look at it like that. You might be happier because other people are affected. This is very important, but people don't have discipline. People don't want to change, and I'm kind of that way. I'm really a creature of habit, but in a very positive way. The way I've trained my mind over my career, and I've helped so many others. Okay, you have no idea, and that's what they need to hear, to uplift. And even Niv said something earlier about all the motivational signs around the academy. There's like 100. One word can change a child's life, or an adult. And when people forget the ones that have become number one or people that become great, they're wired different. Everybody can run and jump and learn the biomechanics of how to hit the ball, but how they look at it, that separates great from good, especially in sports. Okay, because everybody has certain genetics and all that stuff. So at the end of the day, it all starts with appreciating what you have. And you got to tell yourself that every day, not what you don't have. And this is key for anybody listening, okay? Because it's a matter of just training your mind. So if you want to be better about what we're talking about, be aware what goes in here, not just what goes in your mouth. And listen, that will ripple onto your kids, to your friends, your work. You'll be more productive. You'll just look at things so much different, so much different. You can't just because it's 80 and sunny and a nice breeze, it's going to be a great day. Some people get up and they say it's going to be a bad day. I don't want to be around those people. I don't know what they're, you know what I'm saying? So you got to change this, and if anybody wants to do it, it's easy to do.
Right.
But one more thing, it takes self-discipline. To be a champion in anything, you got to have tremendous discipline, because you got all these forces around us pulling us the other direction. Negative people, the TV, social media. It's all that. People would rather see the train wreck sometimes than something else, And you got to be around that type of environment. That's
Yeah.
really important, especially for parents and that have kids. You got to really be careful of that. So that's my sermon on a Friday afternoon about that.
I
No,
love it.
it is good. I think that what is sometimes we have to remind ourselves that what we put in is what we put out. Like what goes in comes out at some point or another. And if you allow the negative to consume you, that's what you will permeate the room with, right? And
Absolutely.
so and it's important to remember that because we have a chronic illness for a lot of us, or because life doesn't always happen the way we think it's going to happen, or it doesn't pan out the way we wish it would have, doesn't mean that it defines our complete life, and that we have the ability to redirect a lot of that based off of what we can control. And no one else can control our mental mindset but ourselves. And this is something I tell my kids all the time. I have a 6-year-old. She tells me, oh, today is just not going to be a good day. And I was like, excuse me, because you didn't get what you wanted. And I say, no, it's going to be a great day with maybe some hard moments. And she was like, no. I'm like, yes, because we all have hard moments. And I think that's true in our lives as well. And why I like that mindset is because our lives don't have to be bad. Our dailies don't have to be bad, but maybe we have some hard moments and maybe we have some hard and challenging times. But it's how we allow ourselves to come out of that space and into one that's healthy and thriving and is allowing us to have a better quality of life. That's what's important too, right? But how do you adapt your methods to creating mental health routines that fit like the unpredictable nature of things like chronic illness and life?
Yeah, I can chime in on that because while Rick was talking, I was like, well, I mean, he just mentioned smile. A
Yeah.
smile is free. It's
Mm,
free. We don't have to go to the pharmacy to get it. We don't have to get it prescribed by anyone. We don't have to do anything to get it. It's within us. That's what this whole book is about. All these techniques are free. And the same thing occurs. We will have to deal with struggling situations. Like if someone loses a point in tennis, they're smiling. Same thing if there's a bad day or there's a difficult situation, I tend to smile. In the morning, you can get up and smile and say 10 positive things about yourself and get into that routine. So the unpredictability is not, there's no excuse because all that stuff is within us. And you just have to get into the habit. It requires discipline, like Rick said. You have to train your mind to be able to make it your best friend and to be able to come up with techniques that are just within you. Saying
right.
positive things to yourself, loving yourself, smiling, having a little bit of humor, appreciating others and also the things that you can do and having a good
Mm-hmm.
it's just our own mental toolbox and we don't realize how free it is,
Mm-hmm.
so it's
Yeah.
easy.
Absolutely.
That-
It sounds easy, right? But then we also are human, and it is a struggle when life is hard. That is hard sometimes to find our smile, and I think that's why, and maybe you can even speak on this, why community matters so much, and surrounding yourself with people that can support you and be that smile when you're having a hard time, or be that encouragement when you don't have the words to
Or
encourage.
remind you. That's the thing. You have to have people that remind you. Like Rick reminds me. Like this is all within you, right? Like look in the mirror. It's got they can have the smile, but you also have to have it too. So it's just a reminder to have these people around you that are going to be like. Sometimes they're like coaches or friends or colleagues, but you have to remind yourself that it's within you. It's you versus you. And if you don't recognize it, you're never going to change. Never. Because you're going to go to the same friend who you're going to start becoming dependent on. They're going to make you happy, but you realize it's within you. And all of those powers that you have. That's why I love this book. It's being able to conquer your own world.
Yeah. Something you said that struck a chord with me is you have to learn to love yourself. This is something that is really hard for many to do when they're mad at their bodies is they have a hard time, or they can't achieve or they struggle achieving certain goals because of physical limitations. And so it's that anger and that grief, which is valid when you're going through those things. That's a valid thing to walk through when your body, when you're in pain, and it's hard to love yourself and it's hard to love your body. How do we how do we climb out of that mentality? Because I'm sure, Rick, you've experienced this with athletes who are upset that they can't reach a certain goal, or they're struggling to reach a certain goal, or maybe an injury that happens and they're frustrated. I feel this. Okay, I'm just speaking for myself as someone who gets hurt a lot. It's frustrating, and it's you can be angry, and how to not live in that anger, but reframe that mindset. How do you do that? How do you do that as a coach, and how do you do that with the science backing it?
Well, first off, I love this question because as I sit here today, back in May, I tore a tendon in my plantar plate in the right foot. Okay? I got an MRI. Okay? I tore the tendon. There was capsulitis underneath. It was swollen. Okay? And so kind of had to go into a boot. And the guy said, okay, the best thing is you can't stand for at least 2 months. See, and I teach 50 hours a week on a tennis court, and I've been standing out in the sun since age 22. I'm like a lizard. I've been out there for so long, you know? And so when he said, you can't stand for 2 months, I kind of said, I can't stand you, you know? I'm going, what is this? So here's the problem. And Niv has helped me a lot with this too, with the boot and all this stuff. And here we are, almost November, and I still have the problem because I probably didn't listen the way that I should have. I know other people would have, but I didn't. I just wanted to keep going. But to answer the question, okay, other than a boot, I never even told anybody if they have a boot on, they're going to notice and say, what? And I tell them. But I never talk about it. I don't complain about it. I actually try harder to do more in other areas, okay, because it's me against Mr. Plantar Plate Tear. That's the way I've framed up my mind. And I also look at it like it could be worse. It could be worse, especially as you get older. So the fact that I have a tendon tear, does it still hurt? It hurts even as we sit here. But I don't look at it like that. Because I've trained myself. Now I'm different because I can handle pain. Everybody could have the same problem or the same pain. How they tolerate it is very different. And I don't mean you should be like stupid about it. Okay, you should ever get help and do all that stuff. But I don't talk about it because even Niv said, how's your foot? I said, it's great.
Yeah,
and I
that's
kind
what
of
he
move
says.
on to the next subject.
You didn't tell me it was hurting.
Yeah, so I don't really, because it will get worse, because then it's in my mind all the time, even though I'm aware of it, because I feel that little stone kind of under my foot. But I always look at it could be worse. I'm the luckiest guy in the world.
He says that all the time.
I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I mean, if this is the worst thing that ever happens to me, I'll take it. But it's a way to look at it instead of just, why me? Why this happened to me? I try my best. I help others, blah, blah, blah. I could go down that rabbit hole. I'm not wired like that. But that started long ago, and that prepared me for moments like this. Because I know life's about problems for everybody. It's how you deal with it. And now when you have like chronic pain, you know what I'm saying? Or you have that pain, I get it. And I hope anybody listening to this understands that. And it goes back to what I said earlier about the appreciation of what I have and how lucky I am. And she's talking about the Mayo Clinic and all this. That's really important. It could be worse. I mean, if someone has a heart attack or they lose a limb, they'll take a plantar plate tear any day of the week. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just like I tell kids. I said, perfect example. You got to run for every ball. This is how I tell. And they go, well, it was out. And I said, I want you to run for every ball. Okay? I don't care if the ball's out. I said, you realize there's people that cannot run. You were born with the opportunity to run. I want your butt running as fast as you can. There's
Right.
people in wheelchairs. Now I'm getting into coaching. I'm still kind of on the court right now. You know, and listen, I flipped the script, and they could be a little lazy and they're ready to call out and celebrate like it's their birthday out. They keep running like a little squirrel on steroids. Okay, I get them to change everything because appreciate. What would you run your fastest? Okay, I mean, some people can't run, and I teach one student, her father's in a wheelchair and stuff like that. You got, so I try to talk to the kids about that, and they have a mentor and a role model and a father figure like Rick Macy. It's very different because the parents are talking to him in a whole different cafeteria. But with me, they get a dose of the real world. And if I can infiltrate their brain at a young age, maybe they'll treat people better, they'll clean their room, they get off drugs, they look at the world different. I'm changing their perspective. And the best compliment is a lot of these people that I've coached over my career, ones you've heard of and haven't, I mean, there's been over 300 national champions. This passes a lot of this stuff down to their kids, and their kids, the way they look at it. And so to me, um, that's what it's all about. So anybody that has a problem or they have chronic illness, just take a step back. You understand that's part of the deal. If you're looking, why me? Why me? If you're on that merry, you'll never get out of it. What's the alternative? You want death? I mean, what is, you know,
Yeah.
what
But it feels like death at times, I'll be
I
honest.
understand that, but listen, it's all a perfect example. I'm kind of deviating away from what we're talking about. If people are going to go run a mile, before they run the mile, I don't think people are going, I can't wait to run the mile. Some people are. Think how you
Yeah.
feel before the mile. Then, after you run the mile and you get done, your mind is feeling totally different than it was 5 minutes ago. You see what I'm saying? And I tell a lot of people, even though I'm getting off the subject here, I tell all the kids when I give a speech at 10 o'clock every day, and they're all dead tired, and they're in the bleachers, I say, okay, if I said we're going to go run 5 miles, even though I'm not like that, okay, we're going to run 5 miles right now, how many would do it? Half of them put their hand up and they're lying, okay, because they're not going to do it. Then I said, we're going to run 5 miles. If you run 5 miles, I'll give you $5,000. And every hand goes up, every kid, and they got it wrong. It's perspective. If they run the 5 miles, maybe someday, if they become a pro, they'll make 5,000 look like peanuts. They got it backwards. You know what I mean? This is what people have to understand. It goes back to the perspective and how we're looking at everything. And chronic illness is a big thing. So it goes down to that appreciation.
It's interesting you say that because, and I'll correlate this with something that I have personally experienced. And I say it often. So, being someone with chronic illness and chronic pain, I invested in myself. I said, I'm worth enough to invest in myself. I have a trainer, and my trainer sits down with me, and we work through a lot of these things. And I said to him the other day, I said, I'm so proud of myself. And he's like, you should be. I said, no, I'm proud because I can do something I couldn't a year ago. And it was in that moment, I wouldn't have said I was proud of myself. In that moment, it didn't really feel good. I'm going to be honest with you. It took a lot of time and effort and believing that I was worth enough to continue fighting this fight of I'm worth putting myself in a position to grow. I'm worth growing my body and investing in my body. And and I think because my mindset shifted into I can do this, and I became proud of that. And it was a good thing for for me as someone in the chronic illness community. And I always tell people, be proud of the little accomplishments you make in a day
I love
because
that. Sorry.
they're so big. And what seems so minute to some is really big to others. So it may, and I've said this before, if if an accomplishment for you in a day is I got up and I got dressed, be proud of those accomplishments because it's bigger than sitting and doing nothing. If your accomplishment and all you can do because you're in a pain flare is taking deep breaths and is trying to eat food or drink, relish in that accomplishment. It may seem small to many, but it is big to you. And I think that if we reframe our perspective around what is an accomplishment for you and being proud of those accomplishments, I think that will propel people to make bigger accomplishments and grow even more so when they're not in a flare or when they're not in a state of like just survival mode physically. Um, because that mental mindset is a muscle. Your brain is a muscle. And so training your brain to be like, I accomplished something today and being okay with that, I think will speak volumes to those who are struggling to get out of bed and feeling that self-worth diminish because they can't do something. I got out of bed today. That's a big accomplishment for me today.
I'll let Niv
Yeah,
chime in, then I'll chime in second.
no,
Go
I
ahead.
just like, I
Yeah.
love that example because that's what I was gonna, this is what we talk about in my clinic all the time is, and that's the book, right? It's, we have to be our own best friend and our own cheerleader. And that's what
Yeah.
you're doing. You're being your own cheerleader. So when, even if there's small accomplishments every day, we don't have to compare to anybody else. We have to compare it to ourselves. And if we feel like we've done more than we could imagine, we've really conquered our mind and our world, that's great. And we have to keep telling ourselves, great job, you did this. Like, for instance, when somebody has an injury and they hurt their foot, or I have patients who are very weak in a wheelchair and they can't really move, but now they can actually lift up their phone. That's a huge deal
Right.
for them. And so they have to tell themselves, and you were talking about this concept of self love. And I think that's really important, especially with people who are dealing with illnesses, because they really beat themselves up. They hate it. I had a patient 2 weeks ago who had ALS, and she hated the fact that she had to live with her mom, that she can't walk or work or has no money, and she's just surviving off what her mom makes, and her mom is working double just to take care of her. But she has to realize that like she herself is a blessing. You know, we went over this. She has to love herself, and her mom loves her. It's once she changed that perspective, and they realized like maybe there's a couple months left to live, then all of a sudden like she stopped beating herself up. She was wasting so much time on that thinking loop.
Yeah.
So it's so important to be our best friend, to be our own cheerleader, to take care of ourselves and our emotions, and recognize from the perspective we should that, we have to love ourselves. The alternative is not good, So it's so important.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
no, this is huge. Obviously the little things make the biggest difference. And if you're gonna beat yourself up one way, you gotta celebrate the littlest things. And this is what I do obviously on the tennis court with people. I
Wow.
want them to feel good about themselves. The other, you get on that hamster wheel and it just sucks everything out of you. You got to understand the littlest thing is a major league accomplishment. And even people that maybe don't have an illness that accomplish something, they take little steps. They take the stairs, not the escalator. You can't look at it like, why can't I do that? Everybody has whatever they're trying to accomplish. And you got to feel great about yourself. Just a microcosm of improvement. Okay. And you got to feel great about yourself. And then that ripples into other things. And like you said, maybe you needed the trainer to get you going. Now you're confident. Your confidence has breed more confident. You even talk about it different. And now you're looking for more, stuff like that. And this is very, very important for anybody listening. You got to really celebrate and feel amazing about the little things you can't do. And you got to understand, you're going to fail. It'll be a bad day at the office, but you got to look at it like you're not failing. It's just an opportunity to do it better. It's all how you look at it. But if you look at it black and white, you're going down a path, and you'll you just lose so many other inner qualities. I can't even tell you, you know.
Right.
But it goes back to what we said earlier. But celebrating the littlest things are huge. It's huge. You have no idea. It's almost like you're motivating yourself. Everybody needs a little push. Everybody needs some outside help. Like Nick said, be your best friend. Motivate yourself. And this is such a key thing. I can't even stress it enough.
Yeah. Niv, can you tell us just a little bit more about the connection between our physical health and our mental health? Like, how does mental health affect our physical health?
Oh, it's the oh, it's so important.
Yeah.
It's the fundamental building block of our physical health. So, mental health is crucial. Patients and people whom I see who have the most positive outlook, they're grateful for everything they have. I've noticed them just improve so much better in terms of their health. And it's the reason why is because they take positive action to love themselves. They take positive action to take care of themselves, just like you were saying. They take the right steps to be able to make the right moves for their health. Now imagine someone who doesn't love themselves, someone who doesn't like how they look, or they're mad at themselves. Now they do destructive things, right? They go ahead and they eat bad because who cares? They don't love their body. They don't sleep well. They don't think well. They do the wrong things because they really don't love themselves. And so it's a really big game changer. The thinking positively, the mental health, the loving themselves, taking care of themselves is so important in terms of course, mental health, but our physical health. And you can see that right away. People self-sabotage. It's all them versus themselves. It's you versus you. And Rick says it all the time. You have to look at yourself in the mirror. And when you figure out why you're self-sabotaging yourself, like why is it that you're making the wrong choices? Why are you eating bad? Why are you binge eating? Then you have to figure out what is that pain. It may be from your childhood. It may be from, who knows what happened. Someone said something to you. And that you're in this like mental loop of constantly repeating it to yourself and hating yourself for it. Once you realize the key to this book is that you are in control of everything, especially those thoughts, and that you have control to stop it, then you can actually fix it. Because once you stop those thoughts and then redirect them to positive thoughts, say, no, that person is wrong, or that event is not right, whatever the situation is, my body is beautiful, and it will be beautiful, and I will make it better, and I won't make these wrong choices, and you'll be on the right track for physical health. And I've seen such great improvements. I know I deal with a lot of patients who are dying or ALS. I had a patient with spinal muscular atrophy in a wheelchair, and she can't move her arms and legs. She's paralyzed almost, and she's born with muscular dystrophy, muscular atrophy, and she gets someone to put makeup on. She just makes herself feel good. She can put a little bit of lipstick, and she has a boyfriend, and they're like going around, Walmart, and she travels all the time with her wheelchair. It's really important. She makes her mental health so good, and she's so positive. She loves herself. She's always glowing with positivity, and that's how she lives her life. And she's probably one of my healthiest patients, even though she's so weak. So very important.
No, it's kind of like what I said earlier, and Niv touched upon it. First off, you got to understand, you control the situation. Don't let it control you. That's the starting point. Because once something happens, now you're going to make a choice. That's what's going to happen. And it's when you can look at it like just how I said it, okay? Then if you're looking at it through a positive lens or an opportunity instead of like woe is me or whatever, and then you just get in that routine and you become a machine, and like I tell people, I deal with stuff every day, okay, but no one knows. It's like I deal with all this stuff, and they don't realize, like, why are you always in a good mood? Why are you always happy? How do you have all this energy? It's the same thing, okay? But I've trained myself to become like that. And anybody listening, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. You're not born like that. As you go through life, you pick and choose, and sometimes you go left, right, but we can all change. So if that's the starting point, it's a choice. But if you're so in that negative, thought process, the mind controls the body. Everybody has to understand that. That's like number one. The mind controls the body. Okay, This is very, very important. And it's nothing to do with how smart you are or your opportunity or money or anything like that. The mind controls the body in whatever lane you're in the game of life. And from there, you make choices. You know how you want to treat people, and it goes back way back to what we said. Appreciate what you have instead of what you don't have. Okay, be thankful. Okay, every day. But we don't do that. Oh, here we go again. 8 to 5. You do this. You're in that wrong routine. All right. So this is very important. And the book, when people start saying how much it changed their life, I mean, just the book alone, there's like 30 hours of private motivational lessons from Rick Macy. When they read these things, it's like a shot of adrenaline just to flip the script. And if you think about it every day, when you get up, if someone, you got all these things going on, the kids screaming, yelling, I'm late, this, that, the alarm, this, you get all these things going on, and you have this positive stuff to kind of motivate you or give you a fighting chance. You know what I'm saying? And this is really important, what you put into your mind every day. This is really important, but people don't. They're letting everything control them.
Yeah. I think something too that I have really seen as a benefit in navigating my own journey with this is that I think there's this misconception that grief has to be doom and gloom. And I think we deal with a lot of grief, and that's a normal part of humans. That's we will walk through grief in our life. You are not exempt at all from grief, right? It's just that when you live with a chronic illness, grief can either consume you, or something that I have kind of adapted to is there can be joy in grief. And I think that if you allow joy to be in that grief, you heal in a different way. And it's a stronger sense of healing, and you heal the mind of the hurt and the pain. Doesn't mean that we ignore it or that we forget it. It just means that it doesn't consume us. And I think something that I've seen within living with chronic illnesses is that if you live in grief and allow it to consume you, you physically are not as healthy. And that is something that I have had to focus on. I can have joy in my grief, and it doesn't mean that I'm not in pain. It doesn't mean that I'm not struggling trying to navigate my day to day. What it means is that I'm not allowing it to consume me. And I think the effects on my body because of that is better. Like, my outcome physically is better because I'm not holding on to the weight of the world. I'm not holding on to things that I can't control. And something that I've learned, and I'm not sure how much of this is in the book, but I think it is that, and we talk about the controlling what's in our mind, but what I can only control what I put in my mind and in my body. And if I put that joy and I put that mindset of healing and I put that in front of me as like, I'm not going to let this stop me today. It might limit me a little bit, but it's not going to stop me. It's not going to stop me from living. And if I put that mindset there, my body will follow that to the best of its ability. We will have limitations, but it'll follow in the best of my ability. And I'm not going to hold it. Tension and stress and anger and negativity, if we hold on to that, our bodies feel it. And I know that for me personally,
Absolutely.
that has been a huge part of it, right? We as humans have the ability to let it go and work through it, or we hold it. And that's I think part of the biggest part of healing physically is knowing that there are things you can't control and then there are things that you can. But thinking about not having to hold the weight of the world will help you in that.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the book talks about thinking loops. And so what we try to say is that our baseline state should always be joy, because that's who we are, and our thoughts should be programmed to give that constant joy. In fact, If I don't have that, I have to like actually go through a thinking loop and figure out what it is that's bothering me and fix it. Because it's just a matter of looking. It's a simple thought that needs to be adjusted. So I'll be like, why is it that I suddenly felt bad about X, Y, Z? And then I'll be like, okay, back it up, and how do we fix it? And that's this. So a thinking loop is how our minds are programmed, and they occur years and years since you're kids. It's how you're born. It's like you suddenly somebody says something, and all of a sudden, like a domino, triggers a sad thought. You see something, or you hear something, or who knows what is, taste something, and now you have a sensation that's triggering a thought. It's usually something, situation. Maybe it could be at work or at home, and it dominoes into that. So suddenly you get into a loop. And it's important to journal these, or to think about it, and to really train your mind, say, what is it that bothers me? And so if there's like an external event that does that constantly, that stuff needs to be deleted. It's like a weed, you have to take it out. And it's a practice, a discipline. Every day I do that. So like joy is your main, should be your constant state all the time. And I know there's grief and there's stuff like that, and that's understandable. Like everyone goes through it, but then you can even use the thinking loop to overcome that, like you're saying, and to find the joy in something that's maybe a negative emotion, and learn to train your mind to be able to. This is all within ourselves to be able to reprogram. And we don't realize we have all so much power.
I said earlier, like everybody has to understand, you're going to have problems. That's don't think like, oh, today was a great day, okay, and then you think no, there's going to be problems. The best of all the rest, okay, whether it be in business, sports, or whatever, they dealt with more failure, okay, and more setbacks and more problems than anybody. Not so much the chronic illness or that type of stuff to some degree. They've dealt with all of that, but all people do is see where they're at. But all those yesterdays of failure and setback and misery and pain led to the future. All those yesterdays. So people have to understand, no one just goes from there over the moon. No way. It's brick by brick. It's like building a house. And how you respond to it is, I'm going to have problems. I'm going to fail. But if you don't try, you'll probably be undefeated. I tell someone, don't enter the tournament. You're not going to lose. I mean, give me a break. Yeah, but it's all, once again, perspective. You got to expect that, and then how you deal with it. We could be in the car, and we go to a red light, and then it turns green, and the guy in front of you doesn't move. You're going to maybe lay on the horn for 5 seconds, okay? You might just ignore the whole thing because you are calm and you're going to do this. Or you might say they're number one. Who knows how you're going to respond to the situation,
Right.
But by just knowing, okay, and being calm, it's better for your health. And you train yourself. I'm not saying any of those are wrong. I mean, that's up in the eye of the beholder, how they handle that. But it's very important that you just don't overreact. And everybody says, it'll get better tomorrow, good night sleep. What's changed other than time? Why don't you change it immediately? How you look at it, okay? Some people get upset all the time. They make mountains out of molehills. And some people have the same exact thing. They're going to respond differently. It's crazy. And it goes all the way back to all these gold nuggets, all these gems that we talked about. And you can imagine the mental strength of some of the athletes I've worked with, okay? It's not that they were quicker, faster, bigger, stronger, better forehand, backhand, serve. It's all how they handle things. If you look at Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic, when they played, they lost 45% of the points. But they have more Grand Slams than anybody. That's a lot of losing of points. You might think it's like 80% that they won and they only lost like 20%. No, it's how you handle the key moments. That's different than chronic illness, but it's the same thing. How you handle things and frame it up in your mind, and motivate yourself and look at the world through a different lens.
Absolutely. There's a huge correlation with that, though. I mean, even in the chronic illness community, I think how you frame your mindset and how you allow what's been handed to you propel you to do something more will change. Like if you have purpose in your pain, if you have purpose in the things in that you've gone through that are challenges, if you find that purpose, it propels you out of yourself. It's like kind of a weird mind shift, right? It's an out of body thing sometimes when you step out of yourself to help others because of what you've gone through. I think there's so much power and healing in that. And I've said this so many times to people. Helping others and stepping outside of ourselves to help others feel joy, to feel seen, to feel validated is it is healing for us. And there's so much to be said about that. Do I love the fact that I've always been in pain? I mean, it doesn't feel great, you know? Like, that doesn't feel great. But what I can do is I can use my pain and I can help others. And then it no longer becomes consuming. It no longer becomes about me. It no longer becomes about, you know, what I can or cannot do. It turns into, how can we shift this? How can I help someone? How, you know, and you find joy in helping those people. It just kind of separates that mentality. And that's just been my personal experience in doing this, is that it brings joy in helping others. Like, I don't know one person that helps someone who doesn't find joy in that. You know? Easiest solution to finding joy, help someone. I mean, there's step one, right? So I do think there's a lot of things that we can do to kind of step out of that mental mindset of just pain in the chronic illness community.
Yeah.
I think we have to look outside of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you just said, because I've done so many interviews and podcasts, especially since the movie King Richard, um, plus my whole career. But that's the cornerstone of my career. That's the cornerstone of Rick Macy. I love to help others more than myself. You know, it's not just the technical, the biomechanics. And that feeling to help others is so gratifying. You know, I'm a builder, you know, I'm a life changer, you know, so that, but I've done that for so long, you become that, and then you have pride in that, you know, when, I mean, it's to the point with my own kids, even when it's my birthday, I'm buying them presents. What's the matter with
Right.
what's going on? That's a little extreme. I mean, I gotta, you know, but that's kind of how uh, I'm just put together. And I think that baseline that you just said uh, helps me deal with everything. And that's why I become, you know, uh, what I've become, you know, and all around the Rick Macy Tennis Center. You know, it's like Disneyland, Candyland, the land of opportunity. The whole place is, people are uplifted and no one said a word. Then when the words come out, it's just a place where everybody would rather have a compliment than something, you know, negative. So what you said earlier to me is gold, but that's been the cornerstone. You learn education as you go along, you get experience, you get all that as you go along. But the cornerstone of that, any teacher, coach, or role model, okay, it's huge, you know. And when you know you're making a difference in someone's life, you're right. You're right. It can help you. I never really looked at it so much like that, but then you have a standard and a pride. So it's definitely, Niv can probably attest, it's probably uh, helped me a lot, because I've kind of been the same way ever since I started doing this.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I love it. You're right. He's amazing.
Here's a real question, and maybe Rick, you would know this too, but I think that because when you are constantly giving, though, the other side of this is when you give, give, give. Say our caretakers who are taking care of us who are maybe not feeling good, and there is that caregiver burnout. There is a lot of that.
Yeah.
How do we support and how do we help those who are the caregivers maybe going through that burnout reshift that mindset to maybe not have as, I don't know about not have the burnout, but how do we reshift that mindset to find that mental toughness, strength, joy, perseverance, all of these things that we're talking about, because that is a really hard thing to give of yourself all the time, but maybe not even feel like you're getting back. I think that's the hard part about that, right? Like feeling like that's thankless. How can we train our minds to have perspective and gratitude and thankfulness when it's never ending?
I think I deal with that in the clinics. I have a lot of patients who have caregivers, right? And the most important
Right.
thing I notice is that sometimes these caregivers get themselves in this mental trap where they want to be in that position, but then they feel like they're a little complain about it. So it's very important for them to be very aware of what they need. And a lot of times because they've invested so much time in somebody, they forget about themselves. And they have to keep on reminding themselves every day that they've got to have that balance. And they say, oh, it's impossible. Oh, it's just, but the thing is, it is possible in some ways if they want it. See, and that's where they get a little bit confused. They have to recognize what they need, and they overdo it. So they forget about themselves. And I think the book is supposed to help refocus who they are, what they like, what their joys are. They have to make that the caregiving a part of who they are, but not the whole thing. And unfortunately,
Right.
a lot of the caregivers tend to make that their whole life. And it is very complicated because it becomes a mental sort of loop and everyday, kind of a drain. And the way that they have to do is separate themselves from the caregiver. And as soon as they separate themselves, they say, look, that's something I do, but then there's also something I do for me. And they can, if they can find someone to give them that break, even if it's for a few hours, that's worth lots of it's we could say money, but it's worth a lot to these people because then they have to find their individual self. What happens is they get so obsessed with their care. They actually mentally get so obsessed with it. And they think that that's who they are. They identify themselves with the caregiving. They think that the other person is so dependent on them. And sometimes these patients are like either brain dead or, sometimes they have like, no cognitive awareness of the caregiver. And so,
Mm-hmm.
so you just, but these caregivers have this like loop, like, oh, I'm doing everything and I'm just sacrificing, and they get this like kind of high from it. They forget about themselves, and then they start, and whatever happens if they stop the caregiving part of it, then all of a sudden there's a huge vacuum because now they have nothing for themselves. So it's
Yeah.
very, very important that they recognize what they like. They write in a journal. They read our book. They recognize, like, the things that mean a lot, that give them joy. They reframe things, and then also balance that time for themselves is so important. They have to. And it's, if they don't do it, they're going to get into that trap of just being overburdened by something like that.
First, I love this question. No, listen, I, I, she's a caregiver, and to some degree, obviously, when you're in certain profession. I'm a caregiver, but on the court, I show you how to deliver. That's a whole different thing. But listen,
Yeah.
I look at this differently, and Niv just brought it up. This is what you want to do. Either you're in or you're out. If you're in the giving business, okay, and sometimes the more you give, the more people will take advantage. Or you'll feel like, oh, they're just sucking all the oxygen out of me. It's just never ending. When you start playing that game, like taking advantage of me, this is too much. When you go on that, you're in the wrong business. But here's how you handle it. It's not going to be black and white. Some people are going to have more needs than others. And you want to give and give, and you want to give all that emotion. But you got to be this person because that's your career or job. You got to flip the script and you got to be another person. You got to be able to do stuff for yourself, okay, to make yourself feel good. But if you're thinking, oh, everybody does, I do everything for everybody else, no one does anything for me, I just give and give and give. If you're doing that, time to get a new job because that's not good. You
That's
won't
a
even
good
do the
point.
caregiving that good. And then you're beating
Right.
yourself up on the other end. You got to be this person, boom, and you got to be able to flip this script. It's mental training, okay? It's like, I do all this stuff and then I might come home and there might be, 15 text messages. It's like it never ends. And if I'm thinking like that all the time, it's not healthy. You put up with it, then you grow not to love what you do. You see, and when you love what you do and you have passion, That's how you extract greatness. That's how you help other people. But you got to understand, this comes with the territory, but you got to be, this is what I do for a living, and you got to be a totally different person. And if you don't have that balance, it could get a little, it could get a little crazy, and you're going to
Absolutely.
fight yourself. You have to be able to do that. And, you know, I mean, I work a lot and do a lot, but when I leave, I do a lot of things for myself. It's very important to feel good about yourself. You got to work out. This is what you want to do. Then, fun, whatever fun I have, that's what you make it. Fun is different from other people. For everybody, fun is different. But if you feel you're getting everything sucked out of you as a caregiver and you feel that for a long period of time, new job.
Yeah. I think that's true. And maybe what I'm hearing too is that we should never lose our identity to one situation
Yes.
or one person. Like, we are a unique human with our own identity, our own love of life, things that bring us joy, things that fulfill us, things that um, kind of elicit that sense of belonging and self worth. And if we allow others to dictate that in our lives and we lose our identity to that, that's where that burnout tends to happen. When we
Absolutely.
aren't finding those pieces of joy that kind of take over the hard things. And that's I do think there's so much value to that, and I myself have had to grapple with that at times as a parent and as a wife and as an advocate in this space. I'm still me, and I had to find that each of these things fulfilled me in a different way, but I couldn't lose my identity in just one of these things. And that's been so impactful for me to be like, I'm going to take my day off today, and I'm going to fuel myself. I'm going to feed
Exactly.
myself,
It should be every day.
you
You
know?
should take some time off. That's very good. For like some time for yourself. That's very good.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. Um, for people that are interested in learning more about your book and about your journeys, where can they find your book?
You can find it
Billion Dollar
just if you just
Well,
Google
there's a
it. Well,
book right there. That's
yeah,
where
well,
we can find it. There's one right over
right
there.
here.
There
It's
you
like
go.
it's called Billion Dollar Mind. It's on Amazon, and they can find it at the local bookstore. I had someone buy it from anywhere. If you go online, you can find copies of it. So, but mostly from Amazon, and
Okay.
it's been a game changer for a lot of our.
And what's interesting about the book, you can go back to it. Okay, you can go back to it like it's a journal where you can come back, you go back, you take notes, you look at it. It's not just like one and done. Oh, it's a great book. No, people, this is like the gift that keeps on giving, and people go back to it. It's a shot of adrenaline. Every day they should read a snippet, and you got a better chance to, you know, get off on the right foot. Because right when you get up, a lot of times people are hit with like a lot of different stuff. And if you get, like I said, when you get into that positive routine, you become a machine.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and there's a kids version as well as a journal,
Yeah.
so you can find
Oh,
all kinds and
sorry,
an
I
audio.
didn't quite hear you. Say that one more
There's a
time. Sorry.
kids version and there's a journal
Yeah, there's a kid's
There's
version and a regular and a
and a
journal.
journal. So
Oh, there's a kid. So there's a kids version and a journal. That's great. So
yeah,
it kind of encompasses every one in the family, all the every age gap and generation.
and
That's
audio book
fantastic.
as well. So
Oh, cool.
yeah,
And an audiobook. Perfect. I want to leave with this little thing, and I'll let you guys give your kind of 2 cents on this too. I have started they have gratitude journals, and as someone who's very ADHD, journals to me are like not the best idea because I'll lose everything in there. But if you have a calendar, um, and every day you just write down a little bit of what you're thankful for, a little bit of that gratitude. So every day you're seeing, and you can look back at that gratitude piece for each day. And sometimes I have a hard time feeling that gratitude because I'm in a place where it's maybe not that I'm just kind of letting, we all have those blah times. But I will go back and I look at my calendar of gratitude, and it allows me to see what I can be grateful for and reframes that So for those of us who struggle just writing and journaling, I usually use a calendar because it's very block-like and it's very clear and concise, and you can go back into time and look at the things that you have been grateful for and can continue to be grateful for. And I think just speaking the word of gratitude, um, so if in my emails or my texts, I'm so thankful for you. I'm so grateful for you.
Oh,
I think that just
absolutely.
makes a huge difference every day.
It does. To you and to the person receiving it. It means a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rick always talks about like Venus and Serena would say thank you every single word. That's like your favorite story all the
Yeah,
time,
no.
eh?
Every day they, good, bad, happy, sad. Venus and Serena, when they were kids, we'd go off the court, and this after 6 hours, it's like, Rick, thank you very much. And whether it be a hug or a fist pump. Now Serena's fist pump was a little more authoritative sometimes, but she was like, that Compton street fight. But no, very, very appreciative. But you just said something that would be great if people would write it down, but they don't even write it down because they don't want to. They don't have the discipline. Now we're back on the self discipline. If I told people, like I have the kids, you write this in your journal, and they didn't, okay? But if I said, if you write it in your journal tonight, tomorrow, when you come here, I'm giving everybody $100, everybody would do it. They got it backwards again.
It's so
Something
true.
shouldn't make you do it. When it comes from you and you alone, that's when mental strength goes on to a whole nother orbit.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you both so
Thank
much
you.
for taking the time to sit down with me. It's great. It's full of smiles and laughter and great skills to take out of this in ways that we can shift our mindset in our lives and find real joy and motivation and strength and perseverance. I think that's a big thing for us, is to have that perseverance and to not give up and not allow life to consume us, but to allow ourselves to have the mental strength to continue going. I think that's huge for us. So thank you both so much for taking that time and breaking that down, and for writing a book that gives us a tool to put in our tool belts to continue to learn these steps, how to be healthier overall humans, right?
There you
Healthy humans or happy humans.
Yeah.
go.
Full of joy. Thank you so much.
No,
It was
thanks for
really
having
fun.
us. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Until next time, everyone, continue advocating for you and for those that you love. I have to stop this, but